The prisoners were hauled off to the Imperial fleet's base, not far from the palace itself, the glittering seat of power in the galaxy. The march to the palace began. The streets were a patchwork of worn cobblestones, caked in generations of grime and oppression. People shrank into doorways and alleys. Krabba, ever the multitasker, was busy calculating escape routes, while also wondering if place was good for business. The procession passed an old woman standing alone in the center of the square, hunched over her cane. Her eyes burned like coals, as if she saw something no one else could. "They have come." Her voice echoed and faded like wind through broken windows. "They have come. They have come." At first there was only silence. Then someone pointed. Another tugged a friend's sleeve and whispered, "The prophecy." A spark caught. People surged forward, crowding along the path, shouting like they'd witnessed a sign from the stars. But the guards stood their ground. They struck down the loudest voices, swiftly and without mercy. Krabba and his crew were shoved forward, toward the towering gates of the palace. Il Professore stared at the ground. Mr. Jones clenched his jaw so tight it creaked. His gaze was fixed straight ahead, but his eyes burned with fury. Krabba turned his head. There, in the middle of the square, the old woman still stood. She met his gaze one last time and raised her clenched fist. Krabba turned slightly. "The granny just gave us a rebel salute," he whispered. Il Professore glanced up from the dirt, blinking behind his fogged-up glasses. "And now," he said solemnly, "it's up to us to play the game." Krabba nodded. "Right. Only problem is, we have no idea what the game is," Mr. Jones growled. "If it involves violence, you can count me in." The prisoners were hauled off to the Grand Palace, where a flurry of frantic activity filled the halls. Preparations were in full swing for the Empire's Millennial Jubilee, an event so monumental even the statues had been polished twice. In the Grand Hall, the galaxy's most loyal lapdogs feasted on delicacies and bathed in drink, and at the center of the hall, upon a golden throne, sat the Emperor. Krabba, Il Professore, and Mr. Jones were dragged before the Emperor himself. A sly smile crept onto the Emperor's lips. "You've mocked the Empire, you've defied the Order, and for that..." The grand doors burst open. In strides a sweaty political officer, eyes darting nervously, and behind him, the alien, the gang's disloyal drinking companion, hauling a massive wooden crate, straining under its weight. Emperor rising, annoyed. "What is the meaning of this?" The officer, bowing deeply. "Evidence, your radiant majesty." He gestures with a dramatic flourish to the crate, bottles and a custom-built moonshine distiller. Il Professore smiles. That gleaming, odd-looking machine, already a bomb, it just needs to be activated. He shot a sideways glance at Krabba, then gave a subtle nod toward the distiller. Krabba followed his gaze, and when he understood, he gave the professor a slow, deliberate wink. The atmosphere was tense. The officer stared fixedly at the floor, as if hoping it would swallow him whole. "Don't just stand there. Continue. It produces its own brew." The Emperor pointed toward the doors. "Get this rabble out to the gallows hill. Now!" Krabba snagged a bottle of moonshine and turned to the Emperor. "Top shelf stuff, your worship. Maybe we make a little deal?" A flicker of lightning passed through the Emperor's eyes, like a cat who's just spotted a mouse and is in no rush to pounce. He raised one hand, and the room fell silent. He motioned for the bottle. Krabba passed it over. With suspicion in his eyes, the Emperor handed it to his adjutant, who took a reluctant sip, and then blinked, shuddered, and began humming the Imperial anthem in falsetto. Curious, the Emperor took a swig himself. Moments later, he was grinning like a madman. This is remarkable. And you made this with that? He pointed toward Il Professore's machine. You built it? Il Professore, grinning like a proud dad at the school science fair. From scratch. I'm intrigued. Show me. The professor fiddled with a few levers. With a series of ominous hisses, gurgles, and one suspicious spark, the machine sputtered to life. Il Professore stepped back with smug satisfaction. Krabba gave an approving nod. Mr. Jones grinned like a wolf. Moments later, the golden liquid began to trickle from the spout. The Emperor turned back to the prisoners, his face now shining with twisted triumph. Not only are you ugly, but you're fools. Now we don't need you anymore. He raises a finger. Hang them.